research shows that nearly 40 million people are dealing with student loan debt. It's a financial burden that isn't easily erased. In fact, the majority of borrowers are still paying back their loans in their 30s or older. Jeff Harmon is advisor for consumer debt counselors. Jeff is here to offer some advice for how you can manage that debt. And Jeff, you've got some invaluable advice for us tonight.
I hope so, yes, ma'am.
I think you do. So we talked last session about everyone really wanting to go to college and how to pay for it. Right. So you are here once you've gone to college and you do have some debt and some student loans.
Right.
How do you deal with them? You say the first thing is to try to cut down on the amount that you take out.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing that we run into, is that a lot of people, they grow up with this idea that if I go to college, I should take out student loans. They don't realize that you can do traditional things like get a job to help pay for the funding, or that there may be scholarships, work-study programs, things that they can take advantage of before actually borrowing money. Because even though it sounds great, student loan debt, that last word is what they got to focus on. It's debt.
Yeah, it is kind of appealing that someone just says, here's this money now. You forget in the future,
That's
you're going to have to pay that back in summer. Okay, so like Dave said, try to avoid racking up the student loans. Then you say focus on federal student loans. Yeah,
and there's a big thing out there right now in the government, a push to help people identify that there is a difference. There is the student loan debt that comes from the government funding, which provides much better repayment options, much better interest rate terms. And then there's student loan debt that you and I could take out from a bank, just like if we want to take out an auto loan.
Okay.
But it's specifically for their student loans. And the problem is that the terms are not as favorable. The repayment options are not nearly as good. And what we find is that the people with the private student loan debt are struggling mightily to figure out ways to get out of that debt, more so than those with the federal student loan debt. So just make sure you maximize, if you do have to take out student loans, the federal side first before you look at the private.
Okay, definitely a good tip there. And so we talked about FAFSA earlier. You're saying the important thing is to make sure you're filling out those forms correctly.
That's right, because one thing that we found a lot of times is that people, if they made errors on their FAFSA forms, they didn't take out as much of the Pell Grants or the Perkins loans. Ones that, again, with grants you don't have to pay back the money. With Perkins loans, the repayment options are much better, the terms are lower. But because they didn't fill out the forms correctly, they were told, well, you're only due this amount of that, and so to make up the difference, they go and get the student loan debt when they could have probably taken advantage of more favorable borrowing opportunities if they'd have filled out their FAFSA correctly, which means putting the right family size, putting the right number of people that are in college at the current time, because all those things obviously go into how much you're eligible for the different types of funding.
Okay, so kind of simple details there, but things you really need to pay attention to. All right, and then you say that when it comes to collection, the Department of Education, which I think is very important, has different ways of taking that money back.
Yeah, the biggest thing that people, that I've always told people about student loan debt is that you can't stick your head in the sand. You can't pretend like it'll go away and eventually one day maybe I can just file bankruptcy on it and start over.
Yeah.
The problem with student loan debt is that there are laws that make it almost impossible to file bankruptcy on it. I mean, there are rare occasions where you can, so you can do it, but it's really difficult. And because of that, you can't discharge it or kind of get a new clean slate like you can, say, with credit card debt. What also happens is the Department of Education, they can garnish your wages. They can seize any tax refunds that you may have coming back to you. So obviously they have very aggressive collection efforts that you can't run away from by filing bankruptcy. So the important thing to remember is that it's not something you can just turn your head from and say, I'll deal with it in a year or so. By that time, it's already, you know, to the point where they've kind of got their claws in you. That's right.
You make a good point there, because of course most people going to college are very young, so you're not thinking about your financial situation.
That's right.
Can this impact your credit score if you're not repaying those loans?
Yes. What happens is with student loan debt, if it goes to a period of time of over 270 days past due, it goes into what they call default. And it shows on your credit report just as if you didn't pay your credit card every month. And all of a sudden you go to get other things, and we have a lot of clients who are denied housing loans, other types of loans, auto loans, because they have student loan debts on them. They're like, oh wait, I forgot about those.
Right, people kind of tend to push them to the side. All right, so as you said, the big thing is don't stick your head in the sand, repay those loans, but a lot of people aren't finding jobs out of college and really cannot pay those loans.
Right, and that's the beautiful thing, especially with the government loans, is that there are many different programs, repayment opportunities on government loans that the average consumer, the average borrower, just doesn't know about. And so what we encourage people to do is to educate yourself about that. Seek out professional help, whether it be through a credit counseling agency like ourselves or going to your school loan advisor. Talk to people who can help you understand how your financial and your family situation could potentially make you eligible for 0-month payments for a period of time, having some of your loan possibly forgiven or canceled depending on what type of employment you're in. So there are more options than just that standard, this is your payment, start figuring out how to pay it. If you're having trouble, there are options. You just have to seek them out.
And you brought out an important point there. There are some jobs actually that help pay off your student loan debt, right?
That's right. A lot of them are teachers. So you know, if you've gone and racked up all that student loan debt and now you're teaching our youth, great for you. And the government wants to say, look, if you're teaching in certain school zones, then we're going to help pay for some of that student loan that you've racked up. A lot of public service employees, you know, if you work for public service companies in the medical field or even like public law, after you do it for a period of time, they will actually give some of that money back and help pay off your student loans for you. So again, it's understanding that there are more options than here's your monthly payment, make it, figure out a way to deal with it.
I gotcha. Well, as Dave said, the important thing sounds like doing some research.
That's right.
Well, thank you so much for being here. If you have student loan debt, check out consumerdebtcounselors.org for the information that we discussed tonight. You can also call 454-3118 or 1-800-820-9232. Well, we have some great shows lined up for you on the 504 this week. Coming up, we'll have a look ahead to the rest of the week.